Record and then we'll get going. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the special edition of this of a public webinar from me, Ryan Wilday. If you're not familiar with me, I know a lot of you have seen my webinars in the past and been a part of the service, followed me on Twitter, and so know who I am. But I am the crypto analyst at Elliott Wave Trader, where we kind of cover the gamut in terms of markets, basically mostly through the Elliott Wave theory. I use the Elliott Wave theory as my main analysis tool on cryptos, and as well as some algo stuff and general technical analysis to boot. But anyway, it's a subscription-based service. At the end, you'll if you're registered for this webinar, you'll receive a link to the video, and on that video, if you're interested, there's a 15-day trial available immediately on the link with the video. So if you're interested in trying it out, you're welcome to. Without further ado, we'll get going. At the end, I'll take questions, and also I'm going to cover Bitcoin in this iteration. I'm going to cover Ether and Gbtc. I'm not going to cover any requests. So if you're I'm sorry if you are hurting for some altcoin take. You will have to join the service, and at least as a free trial, and bug me there. But so I won't do that. But I will take questions after I finish all of my review. And then also, if you were on previous webinars, you know this is sort of part of a series that I started in March. March was a very important breakdown in terms of the Bitcoin chart as well as Ether as well. It changed my view potentially long term. And so this is just really an update on the progression. We had a second one in May, and this is a good point to get a re-review of this. So it's kind of building on that series. All right. So welcome again, especially if you have not attended one of these. Big welcome to you. The main thing I want to leave with you guys first, if we just sit back and look at sort of the forest for the trees, if you will. We have an extremely bullish chart in Bitcoin, and I'm pretty famously in regards to most altcoins out there. I think a lot of them have shown a tendency to really be garbage. To be honest, we get into the 2017, which brought in a giant amount of liquidity into crypto, pushing Bitcoin, what we call heart of a third wave, which is this big parabolic move we have here. Brought a lot of spillover liquidity into altcoins, pushed them higher. A lot of them are new projects, they were very interesting. But a lot of those hot coins in 2017 are really dying. And now we're seeing a new kind of set of upstart altcoins. And I'm not going to tell you that not all of them are going to survive. I'm sure some of them will. But Bitcoin is king to me, not because it's a hot chart right now, but because if you look at this chart here, we have a very giant bull flag. No matter whether we're going to break out this year or next year, or it might take a couple years, we have an extremely bullish long-term chart. And to me is a huge opportunity. And I'm not saying I don't trade alts, I do. I just spend most of my energy accumulating Bitcoin as much as possible, because eventually, because I know institutions are trading it and are going to keep it alive, at least until I see reason that they are wholesale exiting it, but also because it is an extremely reliable chart and far more manageable trading wise. And as I like to say, what alt giveth, alts take away if you're not careful with your trades. So again, if you stand back here on this chart, you hopefully see that opportunity with sideways action for a couple of years, but largely what we call bull flag in basic technical analysis. Okay, that one day should break out. Okay, the bounds of this flag I think are very important to understand. That I'm still bullish if it breaks down to 478. I don't have that as any sort of setup or target or reason to say we're going to 478, but I'm just saying that takes an utter break 478 for me to turn bearish. That's just Fibonacci based, Elliott Wave based support, and I see a reasonable range that in the next year or two it could hit 2,000. It may, and we're going to talk about what it would take for me to say that was primary, that was very highly likely versus fairly probable. We'll talk about that here today. But the upper range, I think 20,000 should contain it. It'll struggle at 35,000 and 38,000. Over that, it's kind of clean airspace for it to run over 38,000. So that we'll talk about the setups we have. However, in the March 2020 breakdown, again, I consider it extremely destructive to the chart, at least on a weekly basis, maybe creating some challenges for it. So we'll dive into that. Ether, I see very different. Let's zoom out on its weekly, and this is you can see I have a massive potential wave structure upward and upward and upward and upward. But however, when I look into I think this B now is poorly placed. When I look into this, we're range trading, but we're range trading sort of low versus the 2018 peak. So I don't consider this nearly as bullish long term, although short term it's been behaving clearly far more bullish. It's been really, really great trades, and those that have been had as primary long trade, which I don't, but I've caught some great trades on both sides of it. This chart is, regardless of all of that, is not nearly as bullish unless we can really start to take out some upper range and get past 800. So I really changed my view about what I just said. If we break over 800, so and with a chance if we get over about 675, that starts to let it loose, so to speak. But it's really traveling low in this range, and so this can be literally called a bear flag on versus this range here. It is currently not taking over most of that range, and just kind of going back and forth. But we're at the end of a range here, and so we're either going to see it push higher, break that breakout, or start to set up to break out, or we're going to see it break lower. One of the two is coming up. All right, so we dive into the weekly. I'm going to catch you up on what I said in May. In May, we had a top. We had expected a top here, and that top largely came to pass. Let's see, that was in June, and I had expected a top when we had the past webinar down in May. So we're pretty much right on that, except that this did not go as deep as I expected it to at all. Not at all. In fact, if you were following my tweets, you would see the day where I had to change my mind, and it was somewhere down. We started pushing up against resistance in here, taking out a lot of these highs that was putting in these lower highs, and I had to be on guard for a bullish breakout. And if you go back to my tweets, you can see where I had to change my mind, and that happens. I mean, I'm an analyst, and I'm a trader, and you better believe I'm not going to let the market get away from me. But analysis is analysis, and markets sometimes thwart our analysis. So I expected a deeper pullback after that June top, or late, yeah, it was an early June top. And I had support level as low as 4,000. That wasn't a target. I would have liked to have seen at least 6,800, and it didn't happen. Okay, I still have this as an alt 2 because it's potential that if we break through 8,800 that we do go there. I just count an immediate trip there highly improbable at this point in time. Okay, so that is where we're at, and now in the bullish. Now I have, again, back to that May webinar, I still have, based on the March action, a fairly bearish view in red B. And some of you may, if you're colorblind, you probably have a hard time see it, but it's this B right here. So we'll get the blue out of the way for you guys. I know some people are colorblind and red's hard. I don't have a really great alternate color on here. That's great for colorblind folks. Every once in a while, someone raises that issue. But anyway, as long as we're over 8,800 and really there's tighter support in the 95, 75, 9,600 region, we should be pushing up into this upper box, which is 20K to 25K. Okay, so that's where I'm at now in the short term. Breaking through 8,800 brings us back to that support at the 4,500 region. Again, not a target, but support level. And then below 4,500 brings us down to 2,000 in a this would be, if it happened here, it would be a very low B wave at this point in time. I would be surprised by it if we were breaking to 2,000. I would much rather see us rally to the B wave high at 20K and then break down from there to 2,000, okay? But I'm also, again, watching white, and I can't tell you where all these supports are going to land for support. This for support and all of that pushing us higher. There's another 4 out here. There's a bunch of 4s out here because of the various subdivisions of this wave pattern. Those supports will be moved, and the subscribers in the service will get them live. It's all based on 50% mark from here, so you can try to do it yourself at home. It's pretty easy, but we really shouldn't breach the 50% mark between here and any of these wave 3 tops as they go, because we know that wave 4s never, reliable wave 4s don't retrace half of the thirds. And you know, even if they retrace half of it, it's quite deep. So we can use that as a reliable stop as we're rolling up and not get trapped in that B wave top. So we're really not worried about whether we get caught in the B wave top or not. Right now, we should be getting to a setup here pretty soon where we want to go really long. Okay, as long as we hold support again, 9,600 to 8,800. Right. Now, Ether, what's really interesting in Ether, I mean, Ether is warning actually in some regards. Oh, I should say this. I mean, both, even though we're in the middle of a correction right now, I was looking at MACD on the daily, and they're both flashing quite bullishly in Bitcoin and Ether. So that is something to watch out for, and maybe suggesting that this correction is over earlier than I thought. And I'm starting to see that in Ether. I don't see the same setup in Bitcoin for an immediate breakout, but Ether is trying right now, and so we have to watch it very closely. Okay, now Ether, it's very much a lot of the same parameters in terms of whether we're in a B wave top, but Ether is interesting because it hit a point of symmetry much more quicker than Bitcoin, where Bitcoin doesn't hit what we call symmetry until it hits 20K. We also call it the A equals C sometimes because the C equals the A, and that's a corrective pattern. But Ether is much more inclined towards a C wave of B or a C wave of this Y wave versus this red 1-2, which is the bullish count. So I actually have the colors flipped. Again, if you're colorblind, I'm sorry, you probably can't see it very well, but I have the colors flipped between the impulsive push to 1500 and the bearish view that we hit a B wave top, and that's simply because Ether is displaying a lot more symmetry. Again, I'm not going short or anything like that. I'm doing quite the opposite in my own trading. It's just analysis, and as long as we're pushing through resistance, I'm going to be long. Okay, and as long as we're not taking out major support, which right now is 218 to 285 to 218 is key support, and I have this red box. I think the red box is kind of wandering on me, but as long as that doesn't breach, then I'm looking higher. Okay, so even though I have this bearish view as being at least suspicious of, as long as we are taking out resistance and avoiding support, I'm going to trade higher. All right, so that's a very important distinction between analysis and trading. So so right now I'm looking higher in Ether short term until something breaks, but I got a warning out because the structure just is not right. It went too fast, too quick. But right now it's still kind of curling up. So we've got a bullish MACD on the daily. And then when we go on a micro, we have what may be a leading diagonal. It's an ugly one. It's contracting. It's not terribly trustworthy. It may be this B wave top, which sends us right back down we'll zoom out. This is the red 2 on that chart I just showed you is the same as this level. This is just more precise target, though it's going to change once I have a firm B wave top. So we really are sort of in between a very potentially bullish setup and this B wave that should send us back down in the C. All right, and it's right now up until this morning I was believing this B wave is far more probable, but right now I actually have to think. I'm going to put my special cursor on here. I always am delayed in doing that, but you should be able to see my arrow better. But anyway, I'm much more between two setups here in Ether on a local pattern as well, and watching very closely. If we are in this red wave 1, we should get this red leading diagonal, which would be called wave 1 on a nano level. We should get a bullish setup down here, retracing up to 764, which is 385. So that would be the support level for the setup. And you can actually keep it quite simple and say, okay, the bottom of this 2 should not be breached. That would confirm that we should short for the C wave, or just if you're not into short trading, just wait and enter lower. But I'm very much I'm very much watching this setup to see if it gets us to a breakout. Okay, so that's the short term in Ether. Again, the warnings about the bullish take, which is a B wave top up to 800. It has room for. Which would send it back down to 50, no joke, if it really is a B wave top. Or do we break out over the 800 region and have a strong move in 1500 is really the bullish versus bearish question. And it's just a symmetry that Ether has been putting in is really not typical of a large breakout scenario that we're looking for. So we're going to have to just watch our risk. And again, we'll take, and that just, for me, that just forces me to take level by level trading more short term. As I accumulate Bitcoin, it just means on Ether, I've got to take more short term trades, more short term swing trades, and just take each level more cautiously until we have some level of confirmation, high probability that it's going to continue up to 1500. And then we have all sorts of stop levels we can use. Again, that 50% move, so 50% approach. 50% approach between the wave 2 and the potential wave 3 tops are very useful for keeping us out of those B wave traps. Okay, B waves are the most vicious waves in the Elliott wave perspective, because they do false breakouts and they do all sorts of other stuff to trap traders on both sides. But the stops that we use are very helpful for keeping us out. So that's my perspective. I've run through that pretty quickly. I didn't realize I do have a habit of talking fast. That was 15 minutes. So we'll go to Gbtc, and I'm going to start to dial down my speaking speed, and go into Gbtc, which, if you're not familiar with, is the GBT trust. And then, by all means, please ask questions. We'll back up on any of these charts since I've run through them fairly fast. Happy to also revisit any of my reasonings for anything I've said here today, for sure, so that nothing here should be a black box in terms of understanding why my perspective is what it is, as best I can. I can't teach you the Elliott wave theory in a short 5 to 10 minutes, but I'm happy to go back. So Gbtc is interesting because if we go back on the March breakdown, it actually didn't break levels that I would call for a more bearish take. But I've got this B wave perspective on here as well, just simply because even though Bitcoin does have a mind of its own on a micro count, it does follow Bitcoin very closely on the macro. And the reason it didn't go as low here was because Bitcoin did during the overnight, and GBTC doesn't trade during the overnight, so it didn't have the same range. And we have a potential, and honestly, this structure is so much nicer than either of the coins in terms of the fib levels it's hitting, the kind of uniformity of the wave pattern and all of that. I mean, it's all sort of a Elliott wave nerd's perspective, but it's far prettier. I was watching it today, and it may be that we form into a breakout, but right now it's still saying that we've got a B wave in here, and in this WXY structure, you can see all of the low liquidity issues that we get in GBTC, all of those gaps in the candles. But right now, I would ideally see it a move to 1088. But I'm watching for this to form into a diagonal, which would be like Ether's chart, setting us up for a breakout. It's also very interesting that I use 2 algos in conjunction with Elliott wave on the service, and this algo went long. Now, it's not always right. It catches big skew and it scratches out of a lot of trades. So it may be just another one of those trades that it scratches out of, but long term has performed. It may be just another one that is going to be stopped out. However, it always piques my interest when Ether shows something potentially bullish right now. Bitcoin really isn't, and really needs to crawl higher, but it may be trying, and then GBTC starts to do it. Sometimes it seems that GBTC knows something that Bitcoin doesn't know, surprisingly. Not all the time, not consistently, but sometimes that's the case. It seems to be it seems to play a little bit earlier than Bitcoin at times. Okay, not consistent enough to get a trade signal on that consistently, but I at least watch. I used to get my eyes kind of wide open when that happens. All right, so that's my take on GBTC. So again, later in the year, we should see a push at least to 20, even in the bearish case, so to speak, before it drops to 2. But if we start to push through 30, this would be akin to Bitcoin pushing through 35, 38K. It's kind of interesting that those numbers line up minus 3 digits, but we should see GBTC push up to 100, where Bitcoin should, over 38, should at least get up to 70K. Okay, so it really is, again, a tale of 2 setups working at the same time. I'm, again, far less bothered by, and this one's not showing that symmetry that you see at Ether, and then at the same time the March low was not too low, but I have to assume that because Bitcoin kind of broke down in the March low, though isn't showing much symmetry locally, that we have to watch closely for this one as well, okay, in terms of the bearish scenario and where it may be going after it hits 20. All right, so I've kind of run through that fairly quickly. I will take questions now, and again, if you want me to go back on any of these charts, I'm very happy to. And I have some questions by email that I'll add to if I don't answer them as we go through these. I'll add them into the mix. Let's see. Could you explain the y-axis of the chart? The y-axis of the chart is price. It is. I have a bug actually in the software. I have a bug in the software for Bitcoin, and I don't know. Let's see. This one's looking okay. Every once in a while it shows up, but the y-axis of the chart is price, and then the fibs also hold the price. And actually, when the bug is working and these prices are off, oh no, they are off. They're way off. So never mind the y-axis here, sorry, but the fibs are right. So whenever I post charts online, I say, look at the fibs, I'll look at the y-axis. And I've talked to support from MotiveWave. This is MotiveWave software. I've talked to support many times, and uh, uh, they don't seem to know what's going on like a machine. So anyway, let's leave it at that. I see it's price, but also percent gain from previous. Well, you must be looking at this. These are Fib projections. So I assume this is what you mean by percent gain. So for instance, this Fib here is 3 points. So it's a log projection. It's not just a linear projection, because when you're doing LA Wave, you have to use log. So it's basically a 3-point projection. And we teach how to do this on the site. I can't teach you the method here in terms of analysis within like 10 minutes. I mean, it's actually something that takes everyone many months. And I was once a member of the site before we had a crypto service, and came out of my tech career to do this full time. So it is a site where we teach analysis. We teach you how to fish. We don't just leave you to just take our word for it on charts. We teach you how to be objective about charts as you go and do analysis on your own if you want to learn, if you want to take it on. Let's see, what's the best way to trade Ether? I trade Ether on Kraken personally. I tend to use, just so you know, I tend to use Coinbase as my fiat, what do you call it, entry zone. So I'll take my money, my bank account is attached to my Coinbase account, but then after it's there, I send it over to Kraken. So that tends to be me. I also trade on Binance, and I trade on let's see, Coinbase, Binance. I think that's basically my set now, and then I trade options on Ledger X occasionally. So it's kind of my exchange set. So if you're not familiar with those exchanges, check it out. Kraken.com. Again, I think they've done a great job of improving big time, and I like the site. Not a recommendation, but I do love the site. And then Coinbase for hooking up your bank account and make. So for a lot of people, Coinbase is great. It's very simple for a lot, but if you're doing heavy trading, I would suggest thinking about another exchange personally, because their commissions are quite high. Let's see, C waves in the 300s for Ether for September timing. I'm not sure what you're asking there, so you may clarify. Oh, okay. I don't time actually. Nothing. You're talking about this C wave. This would definitely be in September, because we're there already. We are already in early September, starting tomorrow. But so it should finish up by September, because often there's time symmetry between here, so you can see about you can stick a line through here, and so August 17th, 26th. So that was about 9 days. So a lot of times just have symmetry, but sometimes the C wave goes a lot faster. Also, if it's a diagonal, it can go slower, but often the C wave is a lot faster. So, but I would expect it to land by September. But again, mark my words, I'm watching this setup closely, and if we can't break through this circle 2 here, then and we hold in there and we start to push higher, then I have a breakout setup for sure. So so again, mark my words, I am looking down right now with my eyes on this potential breakout, and we'll watch how it forms. I don't have a position Ether currently. I just sold some Ether Bitcoin, a leverage trade yesterday, took some profit, but I'm pretty close, ready to either short Ether or go long Ether, depending on how it sets up here in a nano sense. You guys won't, I'm not going to tweet about this. It'll be on the site if I'm taking a trade. Sometimes those trades scratch out, reposition, and we take it. I'm very much a person that will get out of my bad trades and move to the good ones for sure. So, which I harp on the site as well. Could you post these charts on the market section of EWT? Yeah, I'll post. We'll put this video up on in the general. Let's see how we do this thread. I'm out of my room. I'm out of my normal room, so I'll talk to Tom about how we do that. Okay. I guess I could just do a normal post. We'll do something. Can you confirm the bullish levels on Ether 675 and 800? Yeah, unfortunately I have to speak about it very generally because I need that breakout set up to really target them, but they're in that region. That's all I can say right now. It's a general 675, 800 because I'm dealing with some morphing in the structure that's been going on since March. It actually really depends on where we bottom here. Okay, so that's this bottom is actually fairly important in terms of how I project those highs, but they are in the 800 to 670 region. The problem is if you walk out of this webinar and you're relying on those, it will change by the time we get there, and that's just reality. But if we're strong over 800, I don't have a reason to believe right now from here that there's anything holding it back from getting to 1500, except for a break of support on the backside. Okay, so like while I can't talk about the levels more than generally right now, and we'll get more precise for subscribers, Nelly Wave Trader, it's around there, and then again, I mean, what you can really do at home is once we break out, I'll do it again for you guys. And I have a whole video on this on my YouTube for free. But once you break out in a supposed third wave, which for Ether is this red, you can mark. You use the bottom of the two, and then the top of wherever price is, and you just move your fib as you go. Make sure you use log fibs. That 50% mark is where the 4 should hold. They really shouldn't breach that 4. You can have it what's called a diagonal if it breaches, so you may get chased out of a great trade. But in terms of knowing the difference between a strong breakout impulsive structure and something either bearish or something more choppy like a diagonal, you can use that 50% very reliably. Okay, so so you guys can do that at home if you understand what I'm saying. Mark it, and then with your fibs, and then make sure you use log fibs, and then it becomes really reliable. Okay, so that's an easier way to do it if you're not familiar with if you're not on the site and getting the updated levels as we go. But I'll update them. I'll update them for subscribers when we get there. So short term, you're looking for 1088. Yeah, I'm looking for the 11 region, and ideally it gets down sub 11, so 1088, even 1067. But the problem is what's happening in the market today is pretty interesting. So again, my eyes are peeled, ready for a change of view right now. I just can't tell you what's going to happen in the next few days because this isn't predictions. This is all about level by level, So we'll see what happens. But if we can break over yet last week's low, we certainly should go into the sub 11 region for sure. But we've got to get back. We got to get back into a bearish scenario. Yeah, so the same question, C wave and Gbtc to upper 11 in early September as well before breakout to wave 3rd. Again, yeah, it depends on whether we form a long setup here. I don't see it reliably. I only just have this algo saying go long. It's just, again, the algo has been, does take a lot of bad trades for sure. It just has a long-term track record. It just scratches out enough times to and manages that risk. Let's see, what is your long-term price targets on Gbtc? Well, I mean, at a minimum, so the question is, do we go to 100 from here, or do we go down to 2 first? So that's the first question. So this B wave top that we're talking about in the 20 to 30 region, if that really holds price, then we could go down to 2. However, irregardless, I don't see Gbtc escaping the final run to 100, well, not the final run, but a good solid run into 100 to above. And if we get extensions in the market, we can get above 100 solidly. Long term, because I have Bitcoin targets over 300,000 in the long term chart, I'm talking about that back to that weekly I showed you guys with the bull flag, and eventually I do see Bitcoin running over 300,000. Gbtc, I have to review my charts because there's a few scenarios out there by the means by Gbtc goes, but it should go into the 4 figures. We should see Gbtc, could be many years from now, go into the 4 figures, no joke. But it's going to get there in such a volatile fashion. I hope no one leaves this webinar and takes like their life savings and puts it on Gbtc here and now. I wouldn't do that because again, it can go to 2 quite as easily as you can start a run to 4 figures. So it's all about supports as we go. But I do eventually see Gbtc going to 4 figures, like 1,000 to 1,500 at least, even in my most conservative count. But again, it all matters on whether support is support is held. Let's see this. What is the support in GBTC? If it in micro count, let's see. It is. We don't want to break below this low here. I mean, if we break below this low here at 918, we'll go to 6. But we have a more local support. Let me get this out of the way. More local support at 1014. So 1014 is warning that we will also break 918 because usually when the 764 retrace, well, this is 786, but same difference almost. 1014 breaks, we'll break 918 most likely. That usually is the case, but unless we just get a spike in reverse. And then below 918, we should go to 6. So so that's those are the short-term support levels. Let's see, for GBC, can circle 1 in your chart actually be a B wave of expanded flat? No, because we don't have symmetry there. This is not a B wave. There's no way to treat it as a B wave here. Well, reliably, because we basically a B wave has a symmetry structure. So A equals C, but we only stopped at the 6.8. So I would count that ultra low probability. I think I've got what you're saying, unless you're saying this is 5 waves possible and expanded diagonal, but I rarely see expanded diagonals form in cryptos. So it is one of the areas of Elliott wave I doubt when I see potentials there. So I don't see it that way, but again, support levels start breaking, then maybe that's a viable situation. I'm getting lost meaning for a run at least 20. Let's see. That's tied to your one of your other questions. What's your support level to? I think okay. Oh, well, the immediate setup. I mean, I see 20 in play in this chart. Vaughn, as long as 918 is held. Again, back to what I said. I'm just repeating myself. Back, what did I say? It was 10 something, right? I lost my fib. Well, you know what I said. 1014. As long as 1014 holds, and then even better 918, then we should get that run to 20. Those are the support levels. What are the alt2 blue squares? Yeah, that's just if I wanted to call, they're unlikely now. The ones below, they're just unlikely. If we want to call this a 5-wave structure, it's a little bit better in Bitcoin, but I still question it. If we want to call this a 5-wave structure, then we could have a wave 2 in that area. I just don't see this as a 5-wave structure. I see this as a completed diagonal that fell out of the channel and then set up with the next degree. That's just my preference, but it's possible. Some people will count this as a 5 waves. It's extremely ugly. Again, expanded diagonal will be the only way to count that, and that's the structure I doubt in cryptos. So it's just an ugly count to me if someone's doing that, but it still is possible. So if we had a top of, that would be if this 1 is over here, and then we would have a 2. But I'm going to be looking at it if we break this red box. So I have to count it not as impossible, but it is unlikely in my view. In BTC, you're projecting 58 in December 2020, or is it that you can show that level on this in this chart? I know I'm actually projecting a 70K if we take the bullish take. You guys didn't see all of the. We have a microcosm here. It's actually 75K is the 200 extension. I think this moved. Yeah, it moved because I don't have the fib on the back side here, but this is 70K pretty cleanly. I think it's 70 or 71K. That would be the bullish scenario at the minimum. And often with Bitcoin, this is a 5th wave in a larger 3rd wave. So in my view, so often that extends. So it actually will ultimately probably push into 100,000 if we were going to push again. 38 is the key pivot that would send us there. So if we are really in that count, we should reach 70K and possibly reach into the 100Ks if we see extensions. And we see the extensions in the 3rd wave, in the heart of the 3rd wave, so in here. And so we would be aware of it, detected back here before we get up to there. But again, that's the very, I consider that the rosy glasses view. And that you're saying several years out. No, I mean, if we push over 38 in the second half of 2020, then it's coming immediately or expected immediately, as long as we hold all the supports to get there. Again, it's not my main expectation. I'm expecting the B wave top, mainly because of what Ether's doing. But if we break through 38 in the second half, and that's kind of the title of this webinar, right? Is what are we doing in second half? And so the main point I want to leave you in second half is that we got to watch these levels above us and see how price reacts. That's really what I want to leave you as the moral of the story. But if Bitcoin breaks over 38 and doesn't break the support levels, again, using that 50% method I told you about, then we should be heading into the 6 figures post haste, and you know, we could restart late in the year, but I would think it'd be more likely early next year. Please, can I see the chart from Bitcoin on 1 hour basis? So micro. I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah, let me know if there's something you want me to look at there, and I can dive into it. Let's see. Also, a question about Link. Good alts. I'm not going to get into Link because it's a sloppy chart, but we cover it on the site. And like I said in the beginning, I'm not going to answer any questions about altcoins. I like it. I think it has a strong long-term potential chart-wise. I certainly think the project's going well, but it's got a lot of nuances to it that I just can't even cover. I couldn't cover here if I wanted to, but I'm not going to get into alts here personally. It is one of the better ones, I think, but you have to be careful with it. Luke is looking at GBTC topping at 14, the pullback to 5. Yeah, that's great. I mean, Luke, you know, Luke's work is fabulous. Sometimes like our views will be aligned, sometimes they're not. Sometimes when they're not, one of us has got it exactly right and one of us don't, you know, and then we each course correct, right? That's part of trading. That's part of analysis. You take a thesis based on the method you use, and then you course correct when you have to. So I'm not going to fight with Luke on his perspective at all. His work is brilliant, and I trade some of his trades. Usually on other things, I trade my own work on Gbtc, but I can't comment on it. His method is foreign to me, and so I trade my own work on Gbtc because I understand it clearly. But I trade a lot of his other trades, so nothing I'm saying is meant to lessen his value, and because he does amazing work. So that's my only comment I can give you. Yeah, you know, one thing I would say, you know, I'd say too in general is the worst thing you can do as a person is follow multiple analysts on the same security or coin, if you will, because honestly, you'll meet a point where they differ, right? Two great traders can differ on one trade. They both can be profitable long term, but differ at one point in time, in one of them's right and one of them's wrong, or maybe neither of them are right, and you're left with a moral dilemma. Honestly, I think most people would do better to pick some analysis that they understand clearly, they know their track record, and they focus there. That's something I really recommend. And I think if you have enjoyed Luke's work in GBTC, all the more, I mean, stay following it and maybe not cloud your view with following my analysis, to be honest, for your own good, because then you'll stay consistent to his system. But if you're starting to get, you know, or if you want to devote one account to one system and one account to another, that's not a bad way to go. But if you're taking two analysis and then have a moral dilemma when they disagree, well, you're kind of putting yourself outside each of their statistics, each of their long-term track record, and you're very likely to cause problems to your own trading account. To be honest, that's just something. That's just something I have to say about that. You know, just be really careful. And I'm certainly not going to criticize Luke's work because it's awesome. I just have a different view right now. So is there not necessarily a C wave to 2 down at all? A breakout wave 3 and B and E? I'm not sure I understand this question. GBC will be still possible as we speak. You may need to clarify that question. I'm sorry, I don't understand it. It's not clear to me. If the market goes down, do you correlate it with your C waves down? Are you talking about the stock market? I do not correlate the stock market to cryptos. Yes, they correlate sometimes, but if you looked recently, they didn't. And if you spend your energy trying to correlate the two, you'll miss when they don't correlate. I trade the S&P 500 every day, and I trade mostly in options and sometimes in futures, and I trade Bitcoin every day. And I do not waste my time correlating them because it comes and it goes. So that's not something I do. Just letting you know. If you do that, then you'll miss their own supports and resistance. You can't decide supports and resistance on one chart from looking at another. It doesn't work. If you're wanting a position in GBTC long term, what would your strategy be for good R&R? So I don't take a long-term approach because the fibs are too big. So if you want a really safe entry at GBTC, you take a trade at $2 and you stop at 150. But I just don't know if we'll ever see $2. It's on my potential scenario list. But honestly, for me, I would take trades at 6 if we get it. I would take trades at 10. And then you just have to, I offer support levels at each of those levels, and you have to count your risk. It's more about position sizing. You know, if you want a long-term position, we have a setup right now coming in at 10. You can take a small position, and then you are going to have to decide whether you're going to treat it short-term or not. because if we break 6, we go to what did I say? Sorry, if we break 914, we go to 6, and then 6 is key support. So in my view, and then could go to 2. So you have a decision to make with those support levels that how it fits into your long-term plan. And if you want to ride a position to 2, you obviously have to have it very small, right? You've got to have, your account can't most accounts aren't going to handle a big position to a support level of 2. And that's another thing I teach really vigorously is, size your position towards your support level and your risk at support. Okay, so if you're a long-term trader, you may want to give yourself room to 2, but you're going to have to be really small. If you want to try to mix long-term and short-term, meaning using more short-term supports for longer-term trades, then you can, and that means you may have to stop out short-term and then rebuild the long-term position later. If you want to take that approach, then you can take a more sizable position because your risk is less. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I mean, that's running into trading management, money management, and trading style, which again I also teach on the service, so it's just tough to cover in this webinar because to me there's always a nuance to the approach more than just a level. It's got to be position size. It's got to be part of the game plan too. What is the breakout confirmation level in BTC? It's really not an easy breakout confirmation until I have a 5-wave structure, and so we're looking at Bitcoin right now. I use the BitMEX data until I have 5 waves. I really can't give you a breakout. I mean, certainly if we break out over the top, most likely it's going to run, but the problem is B waves also break over the top and then get rejected. So I want to see the setup in a 5-wave structure. So I don't have anything, and then right now tentatively 38,000 should break us up to big time up into the 70,000 to 100,000 region, but we're a little ways from that right now from where we sit. On the can I review weekly, Gbtc weekly time frame? I think that's the last question. I'll catch some from email next, and then check in any last questions, and we'll kind of sign off. But the problem with Gbtc is there's discordant between Bitcoin and long term. So that's the one thing I need to say is this is a work in progress because there's a lot of discordance between this chart. I literally have one count perspective that takes us to 124,000, no joke. I really don't think it will ever get there because Bitcoin should top out between 300 to 500, although I have an alternate that it goes to 3 million. All of that stuff is that's just dream space right now. I mean, I have a count. Whether that count plays out, we'll see. But I think more likely we're expected that we need to see whether we get to 100 or 2. If we get to 2, it actually is pretty clear where I would take this projection. Let's see, let me find the right projection. I would take this big projection and then move it down to 2, and we would literally have a long term out to 25,000. And that starts to come into play with Bitcoin because in Bitcoin's future, I expect a primary 5th wave that will be another very strong move because Bitcoin has a tendency towards extended fifths, kind of like gold. And so I expect that, and that aligns a little bit better where Gbtc would be doing this big 3rd wave with the 5th on the end, 4th and 5th on the end of it. So that would be this count just scaled way down and coming down to the more than 25,000 region. So it's a very reasonable count if we drop to 2 first. But again, so there's a lot of discordance in the Gbtc weekly. I don't find it a terribly useful time frame simply because there's so much discordance with the Bitcoin chart. But there's no discordance between what happened between 2017 and 2018. So in this area, it is not discordant. It's moving with Bitcoin in kind of a basic level structured like Bitcoin. So not discordant back here. But what's happening out in the future has some problems because we have different history. And then it projects the fibs differently because we base the fibs on all the history. So yeah, so I don't have an easy answer for you yet on how that. It's very much a work in progress as we go. I mean, we'll have future webinars for it as we go. What's your bearish case on Ether and what needs to transpire in the short term? Covered it. It would be a drop to 50 if we broke, but we really got to break through 218 to put that in play. Simple. As long as we're over 218 Ether, then I'm seeing 600 to 800. Okay, but we break through 218. We need to be watchful. Well, there's a support level at 100. Below that, we have 50. So we got to be watchful for those things. If we, if we look at the, right now we're heading up higher, but look at what happened in March. And so don't doubt these kinds of bearish scenarios, guys, because look what happened in March. We were heading higher, and then we just came apart and came undone suddenly, fairly suddenly. And on the site, we had a tighter up support level, so we didn't, if people were wise and used those stops, they didn't ride those way down. But just, just as this market is acting very bullishly right now, that's right when you should start to also be aware of the bearish scenarios, because the FOMO is starting to come into play. What is your Bitcoin downside target for C? And I deal with, I don't have a target because I don't have a B wave. I need a B wave top to have a target, but support is the 9585 region. I always say that support and targets are totally different. Target, you have a 3-point projection. The market is giving you action to say the market should go down to a certain level. A support level is just a retrace. So we only have a retrace support level at 9585, but we may never get there personally. But that is support level if we're going to get to that B wave up. It may not go to 38,000, by the way. It could only hit, you could hit 20K and get rejected. So just be aware that we start hitting the B wave region around 20K. I mean, 38K would obviously be a false breakout. It would be a breakout over the 2017-18 high. Well, it's to December 2017 that we topped. So that would be a false breakout, but that's really, really common in a lot of markets, common in the S&P 500, and we can see it here as well. So just be aware of those scenarios. Oh, let's see, we still got quite a bit of questions, guys. Let's see, perfect answer. Where can you use options for BTC? I use them on Ledger X. Binance, they're not American legal. I think Bakkt has them too, and then the CME has them on futures as well. You're ambivalent between a C wave, precision. You're ambivalent between a C wave going down for Bitcoin, Ether, and GBTC and an immediate breakout for 3, or do you have no matter what a C wave retracement coming in the next few weeks before your end? I'm ambivalent because I have stops. I mean, right now, guys, we're over support. We're behaving over support. We're taking out resistance. So I'm looking up, looking up, looking up, looking up. So, but I'm looking forward toward potential scenarios that will kill me because I'm so long. So I need to be aware of that. And so if you're as a trader looking for analysts to be one-sided and all of your analysts that you're following are one-sided, you're making a mistake. You really got to be aware of bearish scenarios as well and know where those pivots are. You really have to if you want to do this long term. And so that's all I'm doing. So I'm looking up until things break, and I'm just telling you where they break. So it's pretty simple to me, but it does confuse a lot of people when they say I have 2 directions. I don't have 2 directions in terms of my trading. I'm looking up right now, today, but that can change. So that's important. See, I've showed it many times, Bitcoin for the rest of the year. I'll put it up here and then I'll go to the next questions. But we'll just put it up again. This is for the rest of the year, but it could be white, could be red. And then all of the levels I'm listing should make that clear. See, I'm going to do 3 more questions, take on email, and then we'll move on because I've got to go. See, what about Grayscale Ether Fund? It's a terrible chart right now. I'll just say that, but I won't go into it. GBTC at 25,000, asked Tom. Well, remember what I said. There's a lot to prove between now and there, please. It's reasonable. It's a reasonable perspective, and it may take a decade, but it is really a reasonable perspective. I'm sure they'll split it before we get there because they split it in the past when we hit 1,800, so it won't be 25,000 by the time we get there. It'll be a split adjusted, but it's reasonable, especially if we have fiat crisis and Bitcoin's at 300,000. But am I trading for that? Nope, I'm not trading for that. I'm trading for levels that are more close in and manageable. And then when we have to deal with that, we'll deal with that. So don't go buying a bunch of GBTC and locking it away because you may be very sorry. Let me check some questions on email, and then I'm gonna get going. Let's see. I know there was a couple here. Let's see if I haven't answered them already. How best to novice to invest for immediate to long term Bitcoin, the wallet, GBTC. I mean, GBTC is good in brokerage accounts. Bitcoin to me it's I'm very used to it now, but you can hook up a Coinbase account with your bank account. It works really well if you're new to it. Still expecting a Bitcoin pullback to 8K. No, my support level now is 9585. So as long as we hold that, I'm not expecting a pullback to 8K. Expecting a Bitcoin ETF in 2021? I don't know. I have no idea. Honestly, if you look at the policies of the SEC right now, I really doubt it will come into play in 2021. The current SEC is really not good. They're not happy with price variations in Bitcoin. That's their sole reason for not wanting an ETF. If you read their rulings, and so I don't expect it to happen. Now the SEC can change leadership. A new president or Trump can change it, but we'll see. but this current SEC is not going to do that. And will a negative 15% GBC drop towards zero if it occurs? I assume it would if we had an ETF, but that's not a given. And we've seen GBC premium drop as low as 7 this year. And I taught our subscribers how to trade that premium alone in a very low risk fashion by shorting Bitcoin and buying GBTC in equal amounts. And that trade was beautiful. So if we get premium down at 0, I will trade it. So B waves are not complete yet. Yeah, no, B waves should not be complete. It would be strange to complete a B wave here. Can it be? But again, I'll say it's likely if we start breaking support, but we haven't yet. And we're even corrective off the highs. So the corrective off the highs says we're not going to start breaking down here. So I can't call them complete until we start breaking support. Okay, but once we break support, again, 9585, then 8800, then I have to be wrong. Okay, so sometimes I am wrong, but the levels tell me. And it's all objective. All right, that is the last question. Okay, so I'm gonna hang up now, but if you guys register, you'll get an email that give you a link to the video, so you can revisit the video all you need, and then again, free trials will be included with the video in terms of you have to sign up, but it'll be there next to you on the site. But if you want to wait, you can also go to my Twitter profile, and the link is there as well. All right, so we'll see you guys out there in Twitter space or on the site, and happy trading, guys.